Hi, beautiful human. Here's a story about how increasing my self love attracted my husband into my life. Because I fully believe that without everything that I did to help myself get into a better space after my abusive relationship, my husband, would not have picked me, and I wouldn't have been in the situation to have picked him. And because I focused on my self love, I was able to bag the sexiest, sweetest man, and I love him so fucking much. So, anyway, here's the story. I exited an abusive relationship, and anyone who's been abused or been in a situation like that knows that once you get out of it, it's hard to really know who you are. And you probably are also experiencing things like depression, dark thoughts, and a lot of self-hate. And something inside me knew that if I jumped into a relationship again, if I jumped right into the next one, I probably wouldn't be on the planet anymore. I probably would let those dark thoughts lead to a conclusion. And that wasn't an option for me anymore. I needed to figure out how to be okay on my own for the first time without having a relationship define me. And because I took the time to do that, my sweet husband got to come into my life. And I wish I had so many specific details to tell you. However, if you know anything about trauma, you know that sometimes you might not remember things from around that traumatic time in your life. So I don't have a lot of memories from that time yet. Some of them slowly come back, and repressed memories only come back when you feel safe enough to heal them. So I feel really blessed that they're starting to come back to me, especially now that I'm telling more stories like this. So I know I did things like journaling. Oh, I burned through so many journals. And honestly, journaling is one of the most profound ways that you can engage in self-love work, simply because self-love is a byproduct of self-intimacy. The more you get to know yourself, you can't help but love yourself more. And when you are sitting in a swamp of self-hate, it almost sounds counterintuitive because you feel like you hate yourself so much that if you got to know yourself more, you would just hate her more. But the opposite is true. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to love who you are. Well, yeah, just the more you get to know yourself, the more you get to love who you are. That's it. That's the point. That's the thing. So I did a metric fuck ton of journaling, and one day it occurred to me while I was journaling that I wanted to know exactly what I was looking for. I was almost ready to re-enter the dating field. This process of trying to be okay on my own took about 2 years because I didn't feel ready. I just kept not feeling ready. I just knew in my heart that it was time for another way. So I was dedicated to doing the other way because there was no way I was going to bring my depression, my self-hate, my poor self-habits into another relationship for that person and also for me. So I wanted my next relationship to be like the one, which it turns out, fun fact, it was, which is so beautiful. And So one time when I was journaling, I decided that I wanted to know exactly what I wanted in a partner. And if you may or may not know, but that's a really big like secret or tip or trick for manifestation is knowing exactly what you desire. Because when you're only focused on what you don't want, your mind is only working towards what you don't want. And that is counterintuitive for you getting what you want. So we spend so much time thinking like thinking things like, "Oh, well, I don't want an abusive boyfriend again." Like, yeah, that's pretty basic, right? I don't want someone who makes me feel like I'm walking on eggshells. But when we are only focused on the eggshells, when we are only focused on the abuse, that is what our mind is searching for. So when I unknowingly took a step down the manifestation path towards attracting my husband, I just stumbled onto making this list of everything that I wanted. Because when you can focus on what you want, then your unconscious mind and your energy can focus on getting that thing. And I feel like we as a society don't do enough of that yet, of focusing on what we want. There's been a huge uptick in things like vision boards and manifestation being more of an everyday topic, and I love that because that is what can change lives when we know how to use those things for our advantage. And when you pair that with doing things from a self-love perspective, like, holy shit, you can change your life, like I did in finding my husband. So I made this list of like probably close to 200 things of minute stuff that I wanted in a guy. Like one of them, for example, was willing to live on a lake with me so we can watch the leaves change in autumn and enjoy the beautiful outdoors. Like it doesn't have to be like non-smoker, 40 years old. Like it doesn't have to be like really straight stuff that you would typically think. Like it can be whatever your heart desires. And so I did that. And I went on some dates and I met some duds, right? Like it wasn't he wasn't the first guy I went on a date with after my abusive relationship, but he was my first relationship after the one who got to like multiple dates, right? Who we talked about being exclusive and being with each other, and being exclusive turned into forever. And I think that's so beautiful. I love him so much. He's my favorite person in the whole entire world, other than myself, because I have to make sure in my self-love work that I am loving myself first. So I always tell him he's my favorite person except for me. And he'll always say, "You're my favorite person." And I'm like, "Except for you, right?" And then he'll be like, "Yeah, except for me." Hey, look, I want to make sure his self-love is like top notch too. That's the beauty of a blissful relationship, when you each want the best for each other. When you each want the most delicious thing for the other person. I think that's beautiful. And like, goodness, I've even gone so far as to tell him, like, you can leave me if you need to, right? Like, if you're not happy here, you can leave. He always looks at me like, "I'm not leaving. What's wrong with you?" Well, not what's wrong with you. He would never say that to me. But he always looks at me like, "Of course I'm staying, Kayla. Like, of course I am." But at the same time, I want him to be happy so much that I know that we would both be safe if our relationship ended, so that we could find happiness, because you will never miss what's meant for you in this life. And to be able to have the security to both think that and believe that and say that out loud on the internet shows me how far I've come in creating a life where I feel safe to be all of me, and I feel supported in being all of myself. as out loud as humanly possible.